Have you ever thought about making the most likely most requested video that has been requested in all of your comments and a lot of your Twitter posts? Because that's what I'm doing today. Hello, everybody. This is That Manga Dude. We have officially reached the video, the cream of the crop, the video that so many people have asked me to do. I'm not going to pull up the amount of examples because it's a lot, and it's not super often, but it's often enough for me to notice. And I promised way back when, I cannot show anything because I don't know where it is, but I remember I said something along the lines of, if I hit 1,000 subscribers, I will make my top 10 manga video. And bada bing, bada boom, lo and behold, we've done it. We reached 1,000 subscribers sometime last month. I'm at 1,200 now, which is just mind blowing to me to think about and to even say out loud. So thank you so much for your support. This video would not exist without your guys' support. So I really appreciate it. But I'm super excited for this video. It's been a video that I've been holding off for a long time, and I only say that because really trying to rank my top 10 manga of all time is really difficult. I actually, it was way more difficult than I was expecting, to be completely honest. I believe the top 4 were the easiest, and then everything after that is where it got really hard. I actually switched one of the choices very recently, as of like yesterday, because I decided, I think this one, in my opinion, was a lot better for me. Now, I'm going to say right out loud, really quickly, just want to let you know, remember, this is my opinion. That does not mean that this is what I think is the best manga. This is my favorite manga. These are the manga that have completely changed me in a variety of ways. The manga that have affected my life, or affected how I consume media, or just in general, something I extremely enjoy. Something I definitely look fond on, things I find really enjoyable. So you're going to see probably some pretty surprising entries. I would say there's probably like one that I would say is probably going to surprise people more often than not, considering what my top is. So we're going to get into it. Let's get started. Let's go. Alright, let's get right into it. My number 10 manga of all time, aka my 10th favorite manga out of everything I've read, goes to the absolutely lovely, wonderful Hikaru no Go from Yumi Hata and Takashi Abata, supervised by Yukari Umezawa, who was a 5-dan at the time. So, this follows the beautiful story of Hikaru, the guy on the front here, who is a kid who kind of just like enjoys Go somewhat, but he ends up meeting a spooky little ghost after he touches an old Go board that he finds. And basically that ghost used to be a famous teacher from way back in the day. So they team up, and Hikaru learns how to become a better Go player because of this ghost. Who is this guy located on the back? His name is Sai. So, why do I love this series so much? So, I actually was fighting with myself on whether to include Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Hikaru no Go as my number 10 entry, and Hikaru no Go pushed Yu-Gi-Oh! Just a little bit further, mostly because I like Yu-Gi-Oh! As a franchise in general versus just its manga. So let's talk about why I like Hikaru no Go though. One, the art is fantastic. I've always loved Takashi Obata's art. I've talked about him in a variety of times whenever I talk about Obata work. That's mostly why I read so much of his stuff, is because I like his art so much. And sometimes I will block out how mediocre some of the stories can be that he's drawn for. Platinum End! But Hikaru no Go is a complete opposite of that. It's a fantastic story. A lot of the characters are extremely likable, especially the main antagonist, aka the main rival of Hikaru. He's super cool. He's really good at Go. It's just a really interesting series. You learn so much about this Japanese sport / game that we don't really have over here, but it's super neat to watch. How they explain everything. It's explained really well. It's very heavily detailed. Let me just flip through it real quick. Some of the art obviously is a little bit older, so this is more of that classic Takashi Obata style before he started to really hone in on what his main style is. But I think that's what I love most about it, is that it's fluid. The art is really great. Yumi Hata wrote a fantastic story that ends extremely well, in my opinion. I actually wasn't expecting the ending considering that this was one of my first sports manga series. So it was really interesting to see how they decided to end it. And it ended, I think, in a very fantastic way. And I don't see enough people talking about Hikaru no Go. I think it really deserves a lot more hype behind it. It's a pretty short series, too. I think it's only 23 volumes, if I remember correctly. And it's definitely worth reading every single volume. So yeah, Hikaru no Go is my number 10 entry for my favorite manga of all time. Whew! Alright, number 9. This is the one that I think was an interesting choice, considering what you'll see later as I talk more about manga. So, coming in, we have number 9 is Naruto. So, this is the classic ninja series by Masashi Kishimoto, featuring our eponymous character, Naruto, here on the front. Naruto Uzumaki, who is the kind of like the bad boy, aka, or not really the bad boy, sorry, he's like the troublemaker in his class, always doing pranks, always doing dumb things, and you come to learn and find out that it's because he's lost both of his parents, and he has a basically this demon thing that's inside of him. As you come to find out throughout the story, you get to watch Naruto grow alongside his comrades and his friends. It's so hard to explain just how important this series is to me. Do I think that Naruto is a really good series? Not necessarily. I think it's very good up until a certain point. I think a lot of the characters are fairly well written. I will say that I think Kishimoto, and for his subsequent works as well, really struggles with writing female characters, and that's a shame. There are definitely some really good there's some really good female characters in Naruto. See Tamari, see Tsunade, but for the most part, a lot of female characters do nothing, or B, are there kind of just to be like the crying hero. Which is like whatever. It would have been nice to see a little bit better execution in terms of the female characters. But overall, I really like Kishimoto's style. I think it's really fun, really exciting. It's really interesting to go back and look at like the original like volumes in comparison to Shippuden, because you get to see like his character growth and his like art grow significantly from obviously the first volume into the 72nd volume. And yeah, a lot of the fights are really fun and really fun to watch, or really fun to read. A lot of like the compositions are done really well as well. I believe in my opinion, Kishimoto does backgrounds fairly well. Creates some really good like world building and just across the board. And even though like a lot of the female characters are not very well written, there are a lot of characters that are well written in general. My favorites being Kisame. I like Shino. I think Kiba's really cool. I can go on and on. I think Naruto is mostly on here just because of how important it was for me as a manga reader when I was first reading manga back in 2006. It was obviously one of the huge series. It had a really popular anime that me and my friends were all totally into. And yes, we did do the stupid Naruto run. So I started reading the manga and I was totally hooked. I thought it was a fantastic series. I loved all of the characters. I could still name probably a good chunk of them, and I've already done a whole like Naruto story in 5 minutes video, so clearly it means a lot to me. So I had to include it here, and I think number 9 was a good spot for it. It's a really important series to me, and I don't know if I could be able to fully say in words as to why it's so important. But yeah, I did my best there, so I guess take that as you will. Alright, number 8 is the second big 3 that you're going to see on here, and the only other big 3 on here. Well, there's only 3, so 66.7% is not too bad. But number 8 goes to One Piece by Eiichiro Oda. This is the classic, one of the best and best-selling manga series of all time. Actually, it is the best-selling manga series of all time, and one of the best-selling comics of all time, which I think is genuinely insane, considering what it's up against. It has been out for a lot less time, but it's like rivaling even the biggest comic franchises like Spider-Man and Batman and Superman. So absolutely wild stuff. And yeah, though if you don't know, well, that's kind of surprising. But One Piece is the story of our boy Monkey D. Luffy, who is going to become the Pirate King. And you learn that he has this weird thing about him, that he has the ability to stretch his body, known as the Gum Gum Fruit. And yeah, so it's about his story of becoming the Pirate King by getting a bunch of people to join his crew, and as he travels around the world doing a lot of things, saving a lot of people. Yeah, it's such a fun series. I think it's definitely a series that's really hard to get into nowadays if like you're not willing to put in the time. It's a really long one. I mean, it's the longest one in English at this point, at 103 volumes out as of July 2023. But honestly, it's such a fun series. Oda is a master at world building. He's so good at being able to build out his world, have like multiple things going on at the same time. It's still kind of, for the most part, making sense, minus a couple of arcs here and there. I think it also has some of the most interesting like power like scaling in terms of like how characters work and their like powers and their strength and how they're introduced into the story. It's not your bad guy of the day kind of thing where like Luffy gets strong, fights someone, gets his butt kicked, comes back, fights that guy again, and wins. Which you see in a lot of Battle Shonen. I think it's really interesting to see a lot of the characters that get introduced. You get introduced to a lot of like the big strong characters very quickly, but they come later in the series, and you already kind of know. Oh yeah, those guys are gonna play a big part later. See Big Mom, see Shanks in a way. Overall, I think One Piece is a fantastic series. It deserves all the praise it gets. It's a lot of fun. It's just very enjoyable. I do wish that some of the comedy was still in it, like it was in like the beginning of the series. But I still think it's got its funny parts. I think, especially with some of the things that have occurred within Wano, will push more towards that comedy factor, which I appreciate. So, yeah, One Piece, number 8. Okay, coming into number 7, that is the classic, at least in my opinion, the classic Solanin from Inio Asano. So this is a one-shot in English. It was 2 volumes in Japanese. A fantastic series. I've talked about it, I think, like, kind of just here and there. I've never really given it a full review, but basically it follows the story of these two 20-year-olds? Why am I, like, blanking? 2 20-something-year-olds. Who are basically like just living their lives. Mako is an office worker, so she's just kind of doing her own thing, and her boyfriend is a musician. So yeah, they're kind of just living life, kind of struggling, not really a lot going on. So she decides to quit her job and pursue her passion and help pursue her boyfriend's passion as well. But after a really bad tragic event that occurs towards the beginning of this series, it totally changes the trajectory of her life and the lives of the people around them. So yeah, I actually, just to tell you a story about this, I read this back in when I went to visit New Orleans. I think it was in 2017. I want to say 2018. It was 2018 because 2017 I was in Chicago. 2018, we were near Baton Rouge, or maybe we weren't. I don't know. We were somewhere in Louisiana, and I went to a Books A Million for the first time, and I found this book. And I thought, wow, that looks really cool. How about I pick it up and take a read? So, picked it up, and on the ride back to New Orleans, I was reading this, and it was one of the first times that I ever got like super emotionally connected to a story. I never felt more like seen, I guess, because it's a story of like finding yourself, trying to figure out what you're gonna do with life. Following your creativity and what you want to do. I don't know, overall, I think all the themes that are tackled within this series were something I really needed to read at the time. And, it got me really emotional in the car. It was like 8 p.m., driving with the car light. I'm like tearing up while like my parents are doing whatever and my brother's like asleep. But yeah, so this series has a very special place in my heart. And that's not even to talk about, some good old-fashioned Inio Asano artwork. Some really good artwork in general. Inio Asano is one of my favorite mangaka, if you didn't know. And Solanin is my favorite work from him. I think it's just a fantastic read from start to finish. I know there's supposed to be like an epilogue that wasn't very good, and I've never read it, so I'm probably not gonna read it unless it like re-releases for cheap. But yeah, Solanin, this specific one, fantastic. I loved it so much. It goes as the number 7 on my list. Woo! Alright, going into number 6. This is a classic series. People talk about the series all the time, and people make a big flippin' deal about it, which, depending on how you feel about that, well, I guess you'll see. But that is Full Metal Alchemist from Hiromu Arakawa. This is the classic tale of Edward and Alphonse Elric, these 2 alchemists, specifically Edward, who is the Full Metal Alchemist. You come to find out he has got a mechanical arm and a mechanical leg due to a let's say, an accident. But yeah, this series is super important. You're gonna probably be hearing that, especially as we get further along with this list. But Fullmetal Alchemist is super important for forming my opinions on how I read manga, how I feel about manga, how I consume media in general. Yeah, it's such a great series. It's so much fun. The art is absolutely lovely. I think Arakawa's got wonderful art. Really good at mixing in comedy and action together. It's just got a perfect mix of that. I think the story is also done really well as well. I think a lot of the villains are just like plain evil, which is always good to see. You know, not every villain has to be redeemable, and I kind of appreciate that throughout Fullmetal Alchemist. We do have our mix of some villains who are redeemable, but then we also have our villains who are just straight evil. And I think it's nice to see that mix and see how the redeemed villains actually do help towards the cause of the main duo here. But yeah, to even talk about everything else, I mean, the side characters are fantastic. You have Winry, you have Roy, you have like Riza, you have so many characters that are so awesome who aren't even the main like characters per se. And I think that's just super cool. And they all get their moment in like the light. We get a beautiful moment with Roy and Riza, and just oh man, and Hughes. Oh man. My favorite character is Havoc. I think Havoc's really cool, and I think that moment as well was really important. And there's just like a lot of just really interesting like thought-provoking moments about like a military state. Like, what is the point? Like, why do we invade countries and stuff like that? And I think that's just also just an interesting thing to like look at, I guess, as well. But overall, Fullmetal Alchemist, I think, is just fantastic. It's so good. It's so good to read. It's a pretty long series. In retrospect, it's about 27 volumes. At least in the original print. I don't know what it is for the hardcovers, but yeah, I think it's definitely worth picking up. If you haven't watched the anime, I know there's two of them. People in my friend group specifically will always like fight on which one's better, if the original Fullmetal Alchemist 2003 or Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is worth watching. Some people say both, some people say the first one, some people say the second one. I don't know, I've never watched it, so but I would say definitely check out the manga. I think the manga is really great, and it's just a really super fun time. It's definitely worth a read. Alright, going into my top 5. The light is very harsh right now. It is so bright. Alright, so number 5 goes to an absolutely wonderful series that arguably came out recently. All the other series that I've listed already are pretty old. With the good old-fashioned quotation marks. They're not that old, but this is probably the newest one, I think. We'll see. Anyways, that goes to the lovely series Blue Exorcist from Kazue Kato. So, this series, good old-fashioned, 27 volumes long, still ongoing, and it follows the story of our wonderful characters Rin and Yukio Okamura, which are the brothers. And Rin, our character here on the front, is blessed, #cursed, by your good old-fashioned Satan. So he has a tail, and he has like this blue flame around a variety of things. So yeah, follows his story as he proceeds to live life trying to become an exorcist, aka trying to become a person that wants to take down the devil. So it features just an absolutely lovely, wonderful cast. Probably one of my favorite casts in all of shonen. I really love the main cast. I think they're super fantastic. Bon is my favorite character. Bon is so cool. But overall, just talking about all the characters, every single one of the main cast gets a time in the light. And actually very meaningful times in the light. Very important to their character development. They really do care about each other, and it just makes you appreciate just how well written Blue Exorcist is. You want to root for everyone, especially for the main cast. There's so many great moments with Shiemi, with Rin, with Yukio, with Bon, with the bald kid. Sorry, bald kid, I don't remember your name. I think it's like Kaneko Maru or something. It's really long. But everyone has like a really nice moment, and all of the characters are just so relatable. They feel so real, and it's like, how could you not root for them? They're so awesome. They're so amazing. And that's not even to talk about just how beautiful the art is. Kazue Kato is so good. Another really good artist that's like really fantastic backgrounds. I remember seeing this the first time, and I was completely blown away. I was like, holy crap, this art is fantastic. Why didn't I read this earlier? So I played a very long catch-up game. Not necessarily recently. I think this was a couple years ago. But I am now officially caught up with the English print. So we're up to volume 27. We're waiting for volume 28. I know Kazuo Kato went on a break for a bit to probably just to take a break because, yeah, it's a lot of work, obviously running a series. But, man, she is so good at writing such a fun and intricate story. The characters are so good. Like I mentioned, all of the characters are so much fun. Even, like, the villains, too, are just, like, oh, man. Their designs are really cool. Everything is, like, so well thought out. I wish I could put it more into words. If I had written an essay, I probably could about this series because, man, this series is so good. It's a series that I got my fiance hooked on, and now she loves it just as much as I do. So yeah, it definitely is deserving of this spot. Honestly, I could probably move it up a couple and I wouldn't even be mad. But yeah, if you've never given this a shot, you really should. It's a fantastic shonen series and definitely worth a read. Alright, coming into number 4, that is going to be one that I've read also fairly recently. I think I started reading this just before the pandemic. So yeah, it's one that has completely changed my outlook on series. It's definitely changed how I feel about reading certain things. Definitely going out of my comfort zone in terms of what I decide to read. I was basically a shonen fanboy for a long time, as you can tell by my list. It has a lot of shonen series. But this was one of the ones that really pushed me out of my comfort zone, featuring something completely different, something going into like a genre I don't typically tackle, and that is A Bride's Story from Kaoru Mori. So let's talk about the series. Fantastic series, lovely series, absolutely gorgeous series. Follows the story of a variety of people across Central Asia, but specifically our main character here is Amir, and she is getting married into this family to a much younger man. But yeah, it's about their story as she's exploring how she is very much like outgoing, completely different from your typical wife of the day, where wife was mostly just like for baby making. But she proves that she can do a variety of things. Actually, she's really good at like riding horses, shooting bow and arrow. So she's very active, and it's like usually not something that women of those days would do per se. So it's really cool to see her kind of like break the stereotype, but also like still hold like those like feminine qualities that I don't know. She's just awesome. She's perfect. She's like such a fantastically written character. Just in general, she's super cool, super beautiful, and also super like bamf. Like she doesn't care. She'll go and hunt some rabbits because she wants to eat. And that's super cool. We love her for that. But not only her, but all of the other characters too that we get to meet throughout her story. As it says, it's a bride story, so we get to meet a variety of brides from different areas that a lot of the characters meet. So you meet these twins who are also super cool, and how they kind of like want to get married just to get it over with at this point. They really care for each other, but they do also care for their husbands eventually. We also get to meet another wife who is already married. But it seems to be very lonely, seems to be very alone, so she convinces her husband to marry another person so that she could have like a best friend in a way. And it's super cool to see their relationship grow as well. Overall, it's really fun and really interesting to see how well researched Kaoru Mori is with the series. I've like, you get to read like all of her little like notes at the end where she talks about how she traveled to Kazakhstan and she traveled to all these areas so that she could research the story. They make it as accurate as possible, and yeah, it's really cool just being able to kind of like experience it like historical fiction like this. But yeah, I've kind of beaten around the bush, but the art is so beautiful. This is one of those series where the cover is just as gorgeous as it is on the inside, and yeah, I could just prove it right here. You get to see such like wonderfully crafted like areas, compositions, such beautiful like paneling. The character designs are all fantastic. The jewelry is so well done, and like that's like not even talking about just like the absolute crazy amount of like texture that goes into all the clothing as well. It's just so well done. It's really gorgeous, and the reason why it's also so high is that like it's like changed how I feel about manga as art. I've always considered manga to be art. I consider just about any kind of visual media to be art. But I think this one is definitely one of those ones where it's like, if you're not convinced that manga is art, you should really just check this out, because I think this is a great example of how manga can be art. It is so good. I love this series so much, as you can tell. I've been talking about it for a hot minute. Definitely give it a shot if you can. All right, coming into the top 3. So this is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting. Let's get started. Number 3 goes to my favorite sports series of all time, and that is Haikyuu from Haruichi Urudate. Oh man. I've talked about the series so much. I've talked about it back when I was doing reading logs last year, when Volume 45 came out, and I was completely blown away by this series. I actually got kind of late to this series. I watched the anime first, I think the first season, and I was reading through it, or I was watching it, and I was like, man, I should probably start reading the manga. And lo and behold, started reading it, and I was absolutely blown away by just how good the manga is, like, as well. And it's so good. So let me tell you a little bit about it. Follow the story of Hinata and Kageyama, mostly Hinata. Show you Hinata here on the front. He's our little orange-haired main character. He's a goof. But he's very athletic, but he's really short, so it's really rare for a volleyball player to do well as a short player. We don't see them too often, per se, but yeah, he goes out to play volleyball because he enjoys it and he wants to prove the people wrong after being inspired by someone called the Little Giant, who was another really short player. And yeah, so he meets this other guy named Kageyama, who is basically a prodigy, like kind of the complete opposite. Really, really good at the sport, but he's also very, very self-centered, really only cares about himself, wants to just show how good he is. And yeah, so it causes them to come together at this school called Karasuno High, and that's when they become teammates. They're basically very much opposites, and they kind of butt heads often. But as you come to read this series and as you continue to read it, yeah, you get to see this beautiful team bond across the board. Everybody on Karasuno is super cool, very well written, and just a very enjoyable, like, together, just to check them out. They're super awesome. They're super fun. I really, really enjoy everybody's dynamic. Like between the third years, the second years, the first years. Everyone's super cool. Everyone's super awesome, and it's hard not to root for them. I mean, not to say that a lot of sports manga where you don't do that, at least for the main characters, but Karasuno is very much a team that you want to root for. Now, the other teams, you also want to root for them. My favorite team is Nakoma. I really like Nakoma. Kuro is my favorite character. I think he's super awesome. But overall, like, you could root for any of the teams in Haikyuu, and I wouldn't even care. I wouldn't even be surprised if you, like, were like, oh yeah, I'm an Aoba Josei person. Oh, I'm a Shiro Torizawa person. Like, I'm not surprised at all. This series has so many well-written characters, so many well-written teams. You kind of root for everyone, and you kind of feel bad when teams lose, even the teams you don't like. So I think that's just like the testament to a really good sports manga is when even when like your like the antagonist like loses, you still are like, you know what? They played a really good game. They did a really good job of being the antagonist. And yeah, I think this series is really great at showing just the true emotion, the true rawness of like sports, of how it feels to win, how it feels to overcome adversity, beat your difficulties, how to get over your own hump, get out of your slumps. I think like it does so many things really, really, really well across the board, and that's not even to say how good the art is too. The art is very, very interesting at first. It's got like this very distinct style, but Furudate really builds it out as they keep reading or keep writing and keep like creating this the story. I'm jumbling my words. Help me. But as we get towards the end of the series, you get to see like okay, sorry for the weird cut, but my camera overheated, so had to basically restart this video real quick. But yeah, Haikyuu, fantastic, absolutely lovely. I think I've talked your ears off already about it, but it's my favorite sports series for a reason, and you should definitely give it a shot as well. Alright, going into number 2, the silver medal. The silver medal, here it is. It's Bakuman from Sugumi Oba and Takashi Obata. This is one of those series that means so much to me. It is so important to me. I don't know if I can really put it into words, but I'm going to try. So it follows the story of Mashiro Moritaka, who is the kid on the front. He meets another kid named Akito Takagi, who is this kind of quirky blonde kid who comes up and he's like, I want to make a manga with you. And Moritaka's like, no. So Takagi basically tries to convince him. He's like, you're a really good artist. I really need someone. Like, all I can do is write. I can't draw for crap. So Moritaka reluctantly agrees, and the reason why he reluctantly agrees is because his uncle was also a mangaka. He was a very famous, comedy mangaka who actually eventually passed away from overwork. So he has some feelings about manga creation. Obviously, like there are definitely those like in the back of his head, doesn't want to screw it up. Doesn't want to work himself to death. But overall, it's really interesting to watch them grow, because like that's their whole story, is to become big and jump so that Moritaka can reach his dream of being the top of Shonen Jump, while also being able to marry his the girl he likes, whose name is Miho, who is trying to become a voice actress, and her goal is to become a voice actress in their anime. So it's really, really fun. I think that's the best way to put it. It's really, really fun, and it's very educational. You learn a lot about the manga making progress. You learn a lot about like how Shonen Jump works, how they like pick manga for their magazine, how one shots work, how like awards like work. Yeah, it has a very, very fine line and very like well researched, well explained writing of how like the whole manga, like, or not necessarily the whole manga industry, but specifically how Shonen Jump works. And for better or for worse, because there are definitely some moments that have aged pretty poorly. I would say like I mentioned before, the female characters are basically cardboard boxes. They're not necessarily super interesting. I would say probably Miho is probably the one who's the best, but everyone else is just kind of there. And things just kind of happen to them, and it's like, well, that's that kind of stuff. But a lot of like the main cast I still very much enjoy. I think Moritaka is an awesome main character. I really, really like him, and I really like how his character develops as he becomes a more successful mangaka, as his art also progresses, but also the struggles that comes with creating. We get to tackle like themes of creative block and like imposter syndrome, overwork, and how that affects like you not just physically but also mentally and like your socially. It tackles a lot of really, really good themes, and I think they're done for the most part very well. I really, really like just about every character that makes manga. I think Fukuda is my favorite character. I just really like people who wear beanies, to be completely honest. And I like his manga that he like writes like a motorcycle manga, so that's pretty cool. But to say why Bakuman is number 2, because I don't have as much to say about Bakuman as I do about other series, but Bakuman is important for me growing into who I've become as an artist. So I was reading Bakuman right around the time that I was looking into colleges, and I wasn't like 100% sure what I wanted to do. I was thinking going into video games or something like that, but I was very naive in high school, as you would expect most people in high school to be. But I think reading through Bakuman, I think that really nailed? No. I almost said nailed, put the nail in the coffin. No. I think really like helped me pin down exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I was like, I really want to go into some kind of art. Not necessarily video game design, which is what I had been doing a lot of research on. So Bakuman helped me to form what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So I went to school for animation. No, I'm not in the animation industry, clearly. But I would say without Bakuman, I wouldn't have gone to the school that I did. I wouldn't have met all the friends that I have now, and I wouldn't have met my now fiance. So yeah, thanks Bakuman for doing that in somewhat. So yeah, I think I just really, really appreciate this series for what it did for me in terms of like forming my life, forming how I treat art, where it's really important to me. It would be really cool to make it a career, but also like I find this nice work-life balance that definitely helps me to appreciate the little things. That art is not necessarily everything I have to do with my life, and yeah, I think Bakuman is just a really important series for me. It used to be my number 1, but well, I guess you'll see what my number 1 is now. And that number 1 is, if you've been watching my videos for a while and you've been wondering where this series is, now you know where it is. It is Shaman King. That is Hiroyuki Take's big series, Shaman King. Wow. Let's talk about it real quick. So, Shaman King follows the story of Yo Asakura, who is the character on the front here, who is going to join the Shaman King fight, which is something that happens every 500 or 1,000. I think it's 500 years. But basically, yeah, he's going to participate in order to try to become the Shaman King. Basically, you become God. And allows you to control stuff that's going on in the world. So he wants to become one in order to make life easy for everyone across the board. So very simple plot, I would argue. But there are so many things that Shaman King does so well. And it's also super important for me in terms of becoming a creative and also in terms of how I consume media as well. So, Shaman King, first of all, characters. All the characters are, a lot of the characters, not all of them, but a lot of the characters are really, really well done. I love Yo. I love, basically the main cast is great. Tao Ren has got a fantastic storyline. Horo as well. Horo is my favorite character. He's just so awesome. Their character designs are all super flipping cool. The research that was done for each of these spirits and ghosts and stuff like that is also really well done. Very accurate to the characters and where they're from, and it's just really cool to see all these things from an older series. The series came out in the late 90s and was releasing until the mid to late 2000s. So into the 2010s? I don't know. Anyways, the series has multiple sequels. I've only read parts of Shaman King Flowers. I haven't read the Superstar or any of the other ones, but talking about just the base series here, the fights are super cool. I love all of the weapon designs are super awesome. Like I mentioned before, the ghost designs are super cool as well. All the spirits have this really cool designs to them. It's overall just a really fun series, and I can go back and talk about it. I could talk about the series for ages. I think it's one of those ones where even if I haven't read it in a while, which I haven't read it since I haven't read from the beginning since I first read it, which was a decade ago. But I can tell you just about everything that happens, which is something that's pretty rare for me. I have a pretty good memory, but not a memory like that, where I can kind of name names, name characters, talk about things that go on. But yeah, this is overall such a fantastic series. It's so important to me. It's one of the first manga series I ever collected. As you can tell, this is a very old manga volume. It's very brown, but I've read this so much. Shaman King Volume 9 is my most read manga of all time. I've read that volume probably well over 12, 13 times. I don't know. It's just one of those series where I've created fake fan fictions in a way where I drew characters and I'm oh, this is the spirit they would use and this is what the weapon they would use. I made pointless quizzes to myself to be oh, look how cool Shaman King is. Let's see how well you know it yourself. So yeah, this series is so important to me. I think it's just such a really fun shonen series. So many of the characters are really well written. A lot of female characters actually are really well done for the most part, which I would argue is surprising. So it's really good to see that overall it's just a very, very good shonen. I would argue it's underrated in comparison to some of its contemporaries at the time. But honestly, you should really give this a shot. This series is so awesome. It's so much fun. I think you'll enjoy it just as much as I did. And the ending, while it's not necessarily my favorite, it's definitely understandable for how this series is. So I appreciate that there is an actual ending other than the crap ending that we got the first time around. But yeah, Shaman King is my favorite manga of all time. That is going to be it for my top 10 manga video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked all these manga that I did eventually read. Or hopefully you do read as well. There's so many good manga out there. I'd love to hear what your guys' top series are. Because, yeah, I think everyone's tops are always different. And I find that to be really fun. Really enjoyable. It's just cool. It's really cool. So let me know what your top 10 manga are in the comments below. I'd love to know. Because yeah, obviously everyone's opinions are different and I like to hear everyone's opinions. So yeah, if any of these manga are in your top 10, definitely let me know so that we can talk about it and be oh my gosh, I love that series too. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. You know what to do. You can you can comment, you can subscribe. I really appreciate it whenever you do any of those things because all of those things are super awesome and it really helps with the channel. Honestly, we wouldn't have this video, like I mentioned, without your support. So thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. You're all super amazing. And if you didn't do any of that stuff, well, thanks for watching anyways. Your views are just as important as well. So that's going to be it for this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.